Hello, people of the internet. This is Patrick Giguère, and thank you for tuning in. So this video is my December 2023 monthly video. It's basically an astrological forecast and analysis. So I'm going to talk about the planetary alignments, the alignments with fixed stars, all that stuff that's going on, what it means to us in our individual lives, what it means to us as a human family, and what we're likely to deal with this month and in the coming future beyond. And kind of an FYI here, I like to read sidereal astrology. So what's sidereal astrology? If you're not familiar with the term, that's visible sky astrology. So if my placement of planets within degrees and signs sounds wrong, it's on purpose. I'm using a different zodiac. I'm using the visible sky zodiac. Mainstream astrology is the tropical western zodiac. It's a perfectly valid zodiac in its own right. I just like the visible sky more. So yeah, if it sounds wrong, I know already. You don't have to leave me a comment to tell me. You can if you want, but kind of a waste of effort. So, and yeah, thank you to everybody who watches, likes, subscribes, shares these videos. I appreciate you very much, and if you like what I'm doing, please consider becoming a subscriber and a liker and a commenter. Comments are amazing for the algorithm in the channel, really boosts things. So let's go into it here. Enough plugs out of me. Well, and my website down in the description. If you want to book a reading, I do astrology readings, rune readings, I Ching readings. All very helpful ways to find strategies to go through life. That's the value of this stuff. I don't do readings to impress people. I don't care if people think I'm an amazing clairvoyant or amazing astrologer. I've found this stuff very helpful for navigating my own life, and I like to help people do it. So you can do all that. All right. December 2023. So it's a funny month because things feel like they're just dragging ass. This is my second time shooting this video, for example. I did it several days ago. The damn camera lens was greasy, so it's like when I was watching the video, it's like I was looking at myself through a fog, which is very Rahu-ish. And it just amplified the light a lot, and my pale face reflects a lot of light. I've got 3 lights here, to light this little scene that I'm in, right? So that, that was a setback right there. Last few days, it's like I haven't wanted to get out of bed, and I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of fucking about everything. My work, my acupuncture work, making these videos, I'm just kind of like, whatever. I've been on top of my music, so that's nice. But yeah, it's just one of those times. So, point is, we're gradually moving in positive directions, but it just feels like we're stuck in the mud and things are taking forever. And then there's a lot of sort of emotional chaos out there. So we've got a lot of factors here that we're juggling. Now, another thing too, the nodes just changed position. So the nodes, Rahu and Ketu, Dragon's Head, Dragon's Tail, they take 1.5 years to go through a sign. And they move backwards compared to the other planets. And the order that they move through the signs, they move backwards. They're always in retrograde. And these nodes are the shadows that eclipse the sun and moon. And what they do is they're basically the karmic axis in a chart. So the Dragon's Head brings in new experiences, and the Dragon's Tail, Ketu, the south node, helps us to let things go. So when these change signs, the nature of sort of the big themes in the world change every 1.5 years. And every 18 years, because it takes them 18 years to go around the zodiac, themes come back. So it's interesting. The last time, so they just changed signs. Rahu went from Aries to Pisces, and Ketu went from Libra to Virgo. So there haven't been any signs since 2005. So think back to 2005, what was going on in your life, what the themes were, what challenging lessons were you up against, and reflect on it. You know, if there was a lesson that you missed, you didn't do well at, now's your chance to sort of balance the account and take advantage of opportunities you didn't take advantage of last time. So 2005 was an interesting year. You know, the U.S., the United States, and its allies, its coalition allies, were in a two disaster wars, but Iraq was the bigger disaster. You know, in the beginning there was a lot of happy horse shit, and it looked like we were going to liberate the country and, you know, be heroes and all this stuff. That was never really part of the plan, but, you know, we the people, we the peasants, were not told about that. So, and there was a lot of chaos in the world, a lot of people in high places, so-called high places, causing chaos to make money. So we got plenty of that right now. Now, another thing about these node positions. The nodes changed signs into the signs that they're now in back in February 1968. That was a big time. If you're not familiar with that, February 1968, that was when the Tet Offensive took place. So up until that point, you know, the U.S. was engaged in a war in Vietnam, you know, a pointless war. And the government, the military, they were spreading a lot of happy horse shit that the U.S. was winning and, you know, this whole thing's going to be over soon. Well, in a single night, the Viet Cong, which was a communist guerrilla group operating in South Vietnam that was working with communist North Vietnam, they staged a massive offensive all over South Vietnam. They attacked South Vietnamese government facilities, military facilities, American military facilities. They made a huge mess, caught the U.S. and its allies with their pants down. So it was clear that the happy horse shit was false and that the U.S. was not going to win that war. You know, South Vietnam was going to eventually crumble. So it's interesting, this whole attack that originated in Gaza, where the Palestinians, the Hamas, the terror group, attacked Israel, it really struck me as like a Tet Offensive kind of thing. You know, and I think in both cases at very high levels, you know, at the global financier, the globalist banking level, you know, of the world, none of this stuff is by accident. And they loan money to every government on every side of every war and every disagreement. And they give money to, you know, terror groups, you know, non-governmental agencies. So, yeah, very similar. You know, and another thing, too, with 1968, this was when the social unrest and the social chaos here in America and other places in the world just really went crazy. So, you know, 1967, the year before, the hippies were doing their thing. And, you know, people were like, oh, people are doing a lot of weird stuff, but whatever. 1968, a lot of rioting started. Protests got crazy. So we're up for more of that. You know, and another very unfortunate thing about 1968, a lot of leaders who I think were really helping to do very positive, productive things were assassinated. So we're talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and then Malcolm X. Malcolm X may have been the year later, but, you know, it's still the same zeitgeist, still the same energy in the air. And, you know, U.S. security services, I think, were very tied to all those assassinations. So we could be going into another time like that. I hope not. But, you know, we'll see. You know, especially, it's interesting, too, that back then in 1968, it was in the summer, Robert F. Kennedy Sr. was assassinated in Los Angeles. Now his son, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is running for president. I hope he stays safe. I hope nothing happens, but, you know, you never know. And this is something I've thought of with him. Here in America, we talk about something called the Kennedy curse, which I'm not really sure if that is on the radar of, people in other countries. But, this Kennedy political dynasty, a lot of people in that family died young and died tragically. So we say that there's a curse on the Kennedy family. I think this is a very ancient curse. And I think it goes back to one of their ancestors who was a king of Ireland. He was a king of Ireland in the 11th century. So we're talking the 1000s. I can't remember the year exactly. I think it was before the Normans invaded England. I want to say it was like 1014. The Normans invaded England in 1066. I think it was around 1014, 1015. There was this king, Brian Boru. He was part Norman. He wasn't exactly native Irish. And the Normans had been infiltrating royal families and aristocratic families all over Europe for quite some time. The Normans were the descendants of Vikings who settled in Normandy, which is on the north coast of France. And they had a lot of piratical sort of tendencies. So he made his way onto the throne in Ireland, was claimed High King, and he was supported by the Pope. And his mission was to basically make all of Ireland subservient to the Christian Church, which was headquartered in Rome, in Vatican City. So he got involved in a war because not all of the people in Ireland wanted to have him and the Pope as overlords. So he fought a war against native Irish people who were allied with Norsemen, with Vikings, whose countries, these Norsemen from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Christian missionaries were already invading those countries with armies to convert the populations at the point of a spear, at pain of death, to Christianity. So these Norsemen, these Vikings, could see the writing on the wall, and they knew that Christianity was really about creating a giant trading bloc, a unified trading bloc, a European Union in Europe. And they knew it was about basically giving the Pope, College of Cardinals, the Vatican, the ability to put kings on the thrones in Europe and take kings off thrones that they didn't like. So the Vikings could see the writing on the wall. They allied with these people in Ireland, and they fought a war against this sort of half Norman Irish king. And his army eventually won the war, but he died at the Battle of Clontarf, and Clontarf is not far from Dublin. Now, before he died, one thing that Brian Boru did was that he had a grove of sacred trees that were sacred and consecrated to the god Thor. He had this grove of trees chopped down and burned. So this grove had been dedicated by the Norsemen, the Vikings, who'd been living in Ireland for centuries. So this early Kennedy, this King Brian Boru, he committed an offense against a very powerful deity, a very powerful god. Thor is the personification of the force of electromagnetism that basically holds everything together in the universe. And even in the Vedic world, the sun rises in the east as a way of sort of honoring and worshiping the thunder god, because the ancients knew that, the sun was like this giant fusion reactor. Without electromagnetism, you have no boundaries and barriers. And without that, the sun would just implode on itself and burn out very quickly. So really, it's a big thing in the yoga communities. People they're almost sort of sun worshipers, and, they do sun salutations, and, a lot of them, they love the beach, and they're like, oh, I'm such a sun worshiper. It's like, well, really in this Vedic tradition that Hatha yoga comes from, the thunder god, the force of electromagnetism, is actually even more powerful and important than the sun. So that's who Thor is. So the point is with this whole thing, I think the curse of the Kennedys, they get killed when they ascend to offices of power with the help of Christian religious institutions. So Brian Boru wanted to conquer all of Ireland and rule Ireland under the overlordship of the Pope. He took the Pope's money. He used this money to, get more soldiers, more troops. And he paid with his life because he insulted the gods. He insulted Thor. Now, when you fast forward to JFK, so Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s uncle, he came to power in a rigged election. All elections are rigged, at least to some degree. He had a lot of help from the Catholic Church, from the mafia, and all of the different mafias work for the different churches that their members are members of, So the mafia guys are all members of different churches. So, mafias, organized crime organizations, they're really just wings of different churches. So John F. Kennedy got help from them. He ascended to the presidency. He died in office. And I think his brother, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., was getting help from these very self-same religious institutions. So that's what I think the curse to the Kennedys is. So like I said, hope nobody gets assassinated, but we're heading into one of those times. Now, another thing with this node change, I think we're going to see the side effects of the prickly pear. So the prickly pear. I think the algorithm is, the AI is catching on to the term needlecraft, so we're not really using that anymore. So prickly pear, if you're not a native English speaker, something that's prickles or prickly, it's like something that has sharp protrusions. So a prickly pear, it's a pear that has a thick skin on it, and there's little thorns that can pierce your skin, that can puncture your skin. So what have we been dealing with for the last 3 years that punctures your skin? There you go. So the prickly pear. So some people have had, I think, up to 9 doses of prickly pear so far. You're going to start seeing side effects from that because people's DNA is being affected, and DNA changes take a long time to play out until they start manifesting in your health. So we're going to see more of this. The powers that be may try to create more hysteria about a new pandemic, but don't worry about it. It's the side effects kicking in, and it was bound to happen. As an acupuncturist, I had patients ask me, should I go get injected with the prickly pear? And I was like, well, it's new and experimental. And they had what? They did it in a year. They came up with a prickly pear recipe. And I said, how long does it take you to become a good golfer? And people will reply, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years. I said, there you go. So you're going to come up with new technology and new medicine in a year, and it's going to be safe? Come on. So yeah, prickly pear side effects. I don't want to see anything, anybody die horribly or anything like that, but nature is a very sort of exacting taskmaster. The rules of cause and effect are very strict. So we'll see what happens there. And, in addition to the node change, we've got a big yod going on for the whole month and even into January. So what's a yod exactly? I'm just going to turn the heat down here. So what's a yod exactly? So yod it's sort of a Y formation, a Y configuration between 3 planets. So planets will look at each other from 6 houses away and 8 houses away. So from 150 degrees away and from 210 degrees away. So it's 30 degrees off of an opposition. An opposition is when planets are in opposite houses and signs. They're 180 degrees away. So 30 degrees off in either direction, be it 150 or 210, 210. This is an in conjunction. So a yod is when you have 3 planets in conjunction. Now, what's the deal with in conjunctions? In conjunctions are when planets have a hard time communicating with each other. And so they cause uncertainty, they cause setbacks. We feel just out of our minds and kind of chaotic and a little crazy. You know, they're not fun. And what happens is they basically shake the earth, so to speak. So a yod, it's a Hebrew letter, often referred to as the finger of God. So the idea is that it's a window, it's a conduit for divine energy to come into this world to make changes. Now the thing is about us humans, we resist change, even when we need to do it. So in order to get us to adapt and to make changes, we're confronted with just crazy, unexpected situations. So we'll have plenty of that in spades this month and then going forward. So like I said, the world's gradually moving in a better direction, but the world's a big mess that has to be cleaned up. It's going to take decades. And the globalists, the powers that be, they're going to try new bullshit. You know, they have all kinds of scams up their sleeve, but they're not meeting their goals. And even, you know, Klaus, the slugman Schwab, has said as much. You know, he's like, well, we didn't meet our goals for several categories in our plan. So, yeah, they're not going to get their way. They're not going to rule the whole world, but they're going to make a fucking mess. Because they're not going to go quietly. So, yeah, so this yod's pretty interesting. So the 3 well, there are 2 planets consistently involved. So you've got the retrograde Uranus. It's going to be at about 25 Aries, sidereal Aries the whole month. Then you're going to have Ketu and Virgo, sidereal Ketu. It's going to range between 29 degrees Virgo back to 27 degrees. So those planets are going to stay there. They're slow movers. Uranus takes 7 years to go through a sign. Ketu takes 1.5 years. And Rahu and Ketu, actually, they stop around the eclipse. So it takes a little while. So then the 3rd sign involved is Scorpio. Very powerful sign, very intense sign. We're going to have several planets rotating through this 3rd position in this yod in Scorpio. In the later degrees of Scorpio, which are actually in the sting of the scorpion. And we've got some big fixed stars that, as these planets move through this 3rd position in this yod in Scorpio, they're going to conjunct with a fixed star called Shaula at 29 degrees Scorpio. This is the sting of the scorpion. It can be deadly and it can be healing. The lore speaks to dangers of poisoning when planets conjunct this star. And when Mars is involved, there's like a danger of being bitten. So, you know, what have people been in danger of being bitten by for the last 3 years? You know, there's other meanings to this too. But, you know, that's definitely one of the real world ones. Now, another star here. So 28 Scorpio, where these planets in this 3rd position of the yod are going to move through. It's called, oh God, I can't even read my own writing. Oh, here we go. Ras al-Gati. So Ras al-Gati, also near the sting of the scorpion. Star of aggression, warriors, clever minds, tricky people, liars. So these are the energies we're dealing with. So it's like, yeah, we've got powerful people lying. That's true. But when you're dealing with psychopaths, when you're dealing with dirtbags, sometimes you have to lie to them in order to preserve the quality of your life. So, you know, things work both ways. But, you know, a very intense yod here. So Aries, where Uranus is. Aries is our thinking, our initiative, our individual identities. It's leadership. So it's like you can be led by other people or you can lead yourself. And that's what really changes the world when people learn how to lead themselves. Now, Virgo. Virgo deals with health, healing, disease, medicines, poisons. It deals with the public health institution, the medical science institution. It deals with service, deals with servitude, thankless jobs. But, it can deal with servitude along with health. So basically, with Aries, it's like, what's our relationship to our individuality? With Virgo, or Ketu is, it's like, whom do you serve? Why do you serve those people? And then Scorpio. Scorpio is magic. It is deep unconscious emotions. It's transformation. It's sudden ups and downs. It's the deep unconscious. It's the underworld. It's our collective and our private underworld. So to really transform yourself, you have to deal with your feelings. And in the modern world, we have 1,000,001 distractions to keep us from dealing with our feelings. And our rulers, our lords and masters, love that because they don't want us to know ourselves. They want us to just do what we're told. They want us to join political clubs, religious clubs, and just do what we're told. So transformation is all about knowing yourself. So that's a big deal with Scorpio. So Scorpio, being this third house, this third sign in this yod, like I said, you're going to have planets rotating through there. So let me get the dates on that. Give you some ballparks here. Okay. So approximately from December 6th through the 18th, you get the sun in those later degrees of Scorpio, near the sting of the scorpion, near the scorpion's tail. So sun's going through there December 6th through the 18th. Mars is going to move through there December 14th through the 29th approximately. Mercury, December 25th through January 10th approximately. And then January 10th through the 20th, you're going to have Venus moving through there. So the sun is your individuality, your conscious self, your soul. It's your ability to call the shots in your life and basically obtain what makes you feel fulfilled. Mars is what you assert yourself in order to do. So it's your self-assertion. It's your action, what you want to build, what you're ready to fight about. Mercury, intellect, communication. And then Venus is your value. It's, what things in your life help you to feel your value, help you to feel valuable. Now, another thing too with this yod, we're going to have the new moon. What is it? Yeah, the new moon on December 12th is going to be in this yod. So that's pretty powerful. So December 12th, new moon at 26 degrees Scorpio. So, and like I said, that fixed star Shaula in the scorpion's tail, 29 Scorpio. So just 3 degrees away. So it's in the zone. And then that other one, Ras Al Gati, 28 Scorpio. So both of these stars in the scorpion's tail conjunct the new moon. So new moons are new beginnings. It's a conjunction between the sun and the moon. New things are begotten. New things are conceived. Because conception takes place in dark places. So we're giving birth here as a collective and individuals to a new sense of personal power, to a new ability to transform. So we can use this opportunity to transform in a productive way, to do what people call ascension, or we can, just be part of the narrative in the mainstream and let that drag us down. So yeah, pretty interesting. So this new moon is also, it's loosely conjunct Mars. So the new moon is at 26 Scorpio. Mars is down at 19. So, it's 7 degrees away. Not tight, but it's being felt. But again, especially with that star Shaula, you get Mars involved in a conjunction with that star, some danger of poisoning or being bitten. So, think about that, reflect on that, be on the lookout. the lunar mansion that this new moon takes place in, the Western name is Parka. So it's the three Norns, the three fates, the weavers of fate, these giantesses that weave the fate of all living beings. The Vedic name for this lunar mansion is Jeshta. Jeshta is the most batshit crazy part of Scorpio because it's in the sting of the scorpion. So all kinds of crazy things can happen here. People have all kinds of crazy emotions. And it can bring sort of like the vengeful side out of people. So it's like a vengeance that comes from like vanity and pridefulness. So, an example that I heard from, Capiel, who has the KRS Astrology channel. He said, just imagine, that like if Jeshta is personified by a person, this person's walking along and like, I don't know, falls in a hole for whatever reason. It was like a tiger trap or whatever. But they fall in there, they can't get out. And then some passerby looks down, and before they can ask you, do you want some help? The person who's fallen down there just looks up at that person who wants to help and says, I'm going to fucking get you for doing this to me. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything to you. So there's plenty of situations in the world that are totally ripe for that kind of a thing to take place. More drama in the Middle East. The Old Testament is like, it's like wall to wall revenge, genocide, poisonings, stealing of land. So it's like, yeah, revenge is a big thing in the Middle East. Jews and Muslims, they're pretty down with the whole eye for an eye thing that the Old Testament lays out. And, Christians act like they're not, but they can be a pretty intolerant bunch too. A lot of cool ones that are open-minded, but, it's a little whitewashed. We have to deal with things that are, deep down in dark places. So, every group has stuff to deal with. So, yeah. People, can be more drama. People could be getting revenge for who the hell knows what, even shit that took place 3,000 years ago. But, yeah, maybe some revenge flying around. And then, another thing with this new moon, you have Rahu from what? Rahu's ninth aspect. So Rahu can look 9 houses away. Rahu's ninth aspect is on this new moon. So Rahu just expands everything. Rahu is the trickster of the pantheon, like Loki or Lucifer. And what they do is they catalyze change, they catalyze growth, they catalyze spiritual growth. Of all the deities in mythology, there are no deities who care more about human evolution and spiritual growth than Rahu, Loki, Lucifer. They're all the same deity pretty much. So what this energy does is it leads us into ego traps that we build for ourselves. So whoever uses this window of time to get revenge, they're going to lose their power. They're going to be shown for the assholes they are. That's a big thing with Palestine here. The only party that's allowed to have any power in Gaza is Hamas. Because they would kill any party that wanted to like make peace with Israel. So, and the Palestinians, these are the latest, since like the Ukraine is like fallen out of fashion, the war going on there. The Palestinians are like, one of the new victims in the mainstream narrative. Now, granted, a lot of bad shit has been done to them, but they've done a lot of bad shit. In Palestine, it's like killing gay men is like a national pastime. So they do a lot of backward shit, and but their leaders are, the absolute worst. So yeah, their true colors will show most likely. Okay, in the U.S., establishment may try to get revenge for whoever the fuck knows what. Against whoever, they're always up to something. All right, so full moon, 26th of December, the other moon in the month. 10 degrees Gemini, in the lunar mansion of Typhon. So Typhon, the storm god. This is one of the lunar mansions that is in the galactic center. The other one is the opposite sign in Scorpio. So the Vedic name for that one in Scorpio is Mula. Fell out of my head in the Western name, but not terribly important. So yeah, Typhon, aka Ardra, the Vedic name. Galactic center. When conjunctions occur here, this is basically a conduit for the energy of galactic center, which is the highest vibrational energy in the whole, galaxy, our corner of the galaxy anyway. So, and this causes a lot of upheaval because the divine shakes up the world order because we as humans don't want to change. So, yeah, this full moon, 10 degrees Gemini. And so while the moon's in Gemini, the sun, which is always in the opposite sign on a full moon, is in Sagittarius. So what do we have here? We've got some aspects. The full moon will be in conjunct a lunar mansion called Natura, which is in Capricorn. Pluto is in Capricorn, so the full moon is in conjunct Pluto. So within 5 degrees, not terribly tight aspect, but within 5 degrees. So Pluto, it's all of our deep issues, deep fears. It's also our deepest desires, which we have a bunch of baggage around that we have to sort through before we can sort of make our dreams come true and manifest our desires. So they are 210 degrees apart. So they're not communicating. So this full moon, it's in Gemini, which is communication and teaching. And, Gemini, it wants to communicate so it can get attention so that it can share things. But there's this in conjunction with Pluto. This can make communication around this time just not come out the right way. So this is something to be mindful of. Now, this full moon is in a trine with Saturn. So that is a 120 degree aspect. It's a harmonious aspect. Saturn is in Aegion, which is in Aquarius. Saturn, when it's in Aquarius, gives gifts. Aegion is the abode of King Neptune or Poseidon, the god of the ocean. So this lunar mansion is all about deep intuition and messages from our deep intuition, from the deep unconscious. So Saturn is trying to help us to basically right the world. And that's an interesting thing. We've had several alignments and conjunctions that were taking place, in 1929 when the stock market crashed, and in 1939 when World War II kicked off, but Saturn had an aspect to those. So Saturn is basically holding back the globalist shitheads in the world and is holding us back from doing stupid things that'll fuck our lives up. So this is very good. What now? And then the other thing too about this full moon. At the time of the new moon too, I should say, you've got the Gandanta Rahu. So Rahu just went from the fire sign Aries back to Pisces. So it's at that overlap. It's at that cusp of a water and a fire sign. Things feel crazy. Then at the full moon, you got Mars. Mars is at 29 Scorpio, part of that yacht I was talking about. And going from the water sign Scorpio to the fire sign Sagittarius. So, Gandanta, it's this cusp between water and fire signs. It means a knot, so it's like a karmic knot. So it's the water, emotions are watery. Water symbolizes emotion. So in this Gandanta zone, planets just, well, we feel the part of our being that the planet symbolizes just feels very like under pressure and constrained and out of control. So this is a time for potential violence and anger and all that, all that fun stuff. So, and also Mars being Gandanta here, it's on the cusp between lunar mansion Parka, the Norns, the Fates. This is all about karma and the effects of our karma. And it's going to Hecate, which is, Hecate is a psychopomp. She's a goddess who guides souls into the underworld and through the underworld. So really powerful place. A lot of crazy things can happen. And at 10 degrees Gemini, where this full moon is, there was a star called Teja. It's a beneficial star, so beneficial for communication, the intellect, all that stuff. So some good things too. Okay, a few more things on the yod here. So the yod, when you want to talk about lunar mansions, Uranus is in Vesta, goddess of the sacrificial fires. So in ancient Rome, Vesta was the goddess of the sacrificial fires in the temple. So, especially with the truthers, they hear the word pagan and they're like, oh, human sacrifice, Satanism. And it's like, well, there were times in pagan cultures when they got desperate, or they got very corrupt, and they, sacrificed humans. That was in times of desperation. What they would usually do is they would burn offerings of food to the gods and goddesses. Sometimes they would do this with live animals. And people act like this doesn't go on anymore just because the Western world is, ostensibly Christian. Well, we sacrifice animals all the time in this society. We have lab animals, which are killed after they've been used for experiments. So, sacrificing to the god of science, really the god of materiality too. And then, capital punishment. That is it's a form of human sacrifice within Christian, Islamic, and Jewish societies. And, the interesting thing with capital, I don't want to go on a huge tangent, but with capital punishment, it's like that convict is basically playing the role of Jesus because, Jesus didn't want to die, but he caved into his father's guilt trip. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be crucified. He was so stressed out, he was sweating blood in the Garden of Gethsemane. But, I think it's abusive. I don't begrudge anyone their faith, but when it comes to me, I think that's abusive, where it's like his father made him do it. And he has to take all the punishment off people who, for things they did, but he didn't do. It's like, one, it's abusive. Two, no boundaries. It's like, I'm not gonna pay for someone else's crime. You shouldn't. No one should. So yeah, Christian societies commit human sacrifice too. So anyway, Vesta, goddess of the sacrificial fires. Ketu is in Vulcan. So Vulcan, it's very Venus related. It's all about, creating beautiful things, but superficiality can come with this. And then Parka, which the other planets will cycle through, and Scorpio is part of this yod. It deals with karmic patterns of our lives and personal power. So with this yod, it's like there's a temptation. So on the one hand, there's a temptation to sacrifice yourself for very superficial reasons, so you can get your sticker. I got my prickly pear, for example. But there will be karma attached to that. But then on the other hand, if you sacrifice your comfort zone and you don't follow the narrative and the superficiality of that, then you can find personal power. So depends how you live this and how you do this. So yeah. All right, what is the next thing here? Yeah, real quick, December 6th, Neptune station. So Neptune had been retrograde in Pisces. So Neptune was, showing us very, Neptune is a significator of the technology of mass media, because mass media is a virtual reality. When you watch something on TV, on your phone, on your computer, you're not really watching, say the president give a speech. You're watching a facsimile, which has been edited and has been lit, edited. The sound has been set up in a certain way to make you have a certain perception of what's going on. So that's Neptune, because Neptune can be illusions. Neptune can also be amazing, clarity and revelations, but depends where you meet it. So, and Neptune is in Chimera, the lunar mansion of Chimera at 0 degrees Pisces. So Chimera is all about making a difference, which can be a good thing. But, to really make a difference in the world, you have to sort your own life out so people can follow your example. If you think you're going to change the world by voting somebody into office and then you're just going to kick back and watch TV, well, you're not making a difference, but you're trying to virtue signal like you want to. So, and, with the prickly pear, a lot of people were virtue signaling that they wanted to defeat Orange Man 45 by getting the prickly pear, even though he was the first one to promote it before he left office. So, yeah. Mercury retrograde, December the 13th, runs till January 1st. So it goes from 14 degrees Sagittarius back to 27 Scorpio. So this is interesting because it's conjunct the moon that day within 4 degrees. And it starts in the lunar mansion of Ceto, which is a lunar mansion of authority. Goes back through Hecate, which deals with the underworld, our deep unconscious selves. And then back to Parka, which is our karmic patterns. So our authority is based on our unconscious assumptions, our unconscious view of the world, our lives, and ourselves. And that is based on our karmic patterns from this life and from past lives. So yeah. And then at 14 Sagittarius, there is a star called Caus Borealis, which deals with success in war, business, and competition. So the most positive, productive way to look at that is that, when you take this Norse, this old Germanic concept of dying and going to Valhalla, dying in battle and going to Valhalla, it's not about dying in warfare. It's about conquering your life. It's about understanding what your dreams are, what you want out of life. And it's about accomplishing those things or dying trying. So, and this Mercury retrograde wants to help us do that. So Sagittarius deals with our knowledge, our philosophy, our worldview, our spirituality. Scorpio, which goes back to, is our personal power. So, pretty cool. And at this time, too, with this Mercury retrograde, Saturn is at 7 degrees Aquarius, lunar mansion of Aegion, conjunct the natal moon of the United States of America. So Saturn is trying to help us here in America get real, because Aquarius is the 3rd house of mass media. So Saturn's trying to clear up the bullshit, trying to help us do that. Jupiter stations direct December 30th, 11 degrees sidereal Aries, lunar mansion Dioscuri. Dioscuri were the twins, Castor and Pollux, who are very accessible deities who can be called upon to help people, to help anybody. So, good place for Jupiter. Now, 2 fixed stars at this 11th degree of Aries. You've got Alferk, which is a wealth star, and then you have, what is that? Kaf, which is a star of occult, hidden knowledge. So Jupiter wants to help us to improve our quality of life, to feel wealthy, by helping us to see and understand knowledge, information that's usually hidden. So that's pretty neat. You know, and Aries for America, that is what? Losing my place. That is the fifth house. Fifth house of the performance art of politics. So, you know, maybe we'll get some new glimpses behind the curtain. Who knows? And then last, midwinter, you know, Yule, the Christmas holiday. This is when the sun is reborn, where the sun reaches its low point on the southern horizon for us here in the northern hemisphere, and then it starts coming back north again, and then the spring starts coming. So yeah, midwinter's day, December 21st. The yod is still in effect. We have Mars 25 Scorpio in that yod, so yeah, Mars is in the sting of the scorpion. And you know, the other big thing, you've got Uranus opposed Venus. So Uranus is a disruptor. Uranus is the earth shaker. It's in retrograde. It's even more intense. It's opposed Venus. So Uranus is at 25 Aries. Venus is at 26 Libra. So Uranus is in Vesta, goddess of the sacrificial fires. Venus is in Dinas, a lunar mansion called Dinas, which is another name for Aries or Mars, the war god. So this is all about, you know, what are you going to do here? Are you going to disrupt your own individuality in order to keep your friends? You know, your conditional friends that'll treat you like a freak if you don't follow the mainstream narrative? Or are you going to sacrifice the comfort zone of getting approval from those other people? So, yeah, another interesting one. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you later.